All right, so JFK. We're diving back into the JFK assassination today and focusing on something that I think is fascinating, all the witnesses and the evidence. And for this deep dive, you guys sent in some really incredible material for us to dig into.
Yeah.
The Fourth Decade Research Journal, which, always got different viewpoints and stuff in there.
Lots of different opinions.
We got Gaten Fonzie's book, The Last Investigation, a classic.
A classic.
And an article by Jack White called Was the Nix Film Altered?
Oh, interesting.
So are these going to challenge what we think we know about the official story, or are they going to support it? Let's find out.
Well, I think it's always helpful to kind of, reset and remember just how momentous November 22nd, 1963 was. President Kennedy, his motorcades going through Dealey Plaza in Dallas, and then shots ring out, the nation, just turmoil, the world mourns. And, then we have Lee Harvey Oswald, who, former Marine, some connections to the Soviet Union. He emerges as the prime suspect, the lone gunman. But very quickly, questions start swirling.
Yeah, almost immediately.
Immediately, yeah.
And the Fourth Decade gets into the witness accounts. In fact, they have this article called Closing Arguments, and they're pretty blunt about their skepticism.
Oh, really?
They talk about, witness embellishments.
Yeah.
And they seem frustrated by the reliance on non-medical observers. What did they see? What did they really see?
Yeah, that's such a crucial point. It makes you wonder, how reliable can any eyewitness testimony really be, especially when you're dealing with that level of chaos and trauma. And, it's not just about the JFK assassination. It's about how our memories work in general. Even in our everyday lives, memory can be surprisingly unreliable.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, think about it. How often do you misremember something or let your own biases kind of color how you recall an event? So, when you're dealing with something as significant and as intensely scrutinized as the JFK assassination, these questions about memory and the reliability of what people say they saw become absolutely crucial.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder if we can truly rely on what people claim to have seen, especially years after something like that happens.
Absolutely.
And speaking of maybe unreliable witnesses, the Fourth Decade also has this article, The Wandering Wounds. And it gets into this really curious case of Dr. Jenkins. He was one of the doctors who treated JFK at Parkland Hospital. And his account of where the head wound was, it actually changes over time.
Oh, wow. So what does he say initially?
Well, at first he puts the wound on the left temple, right here. But later on, when he testifies before the Warren Commission, he says it's on the back of the head.
Oh, wow. So it's like completely different locations.
Right.
That is a huge discrepancy.
I know. So what could account for that? Was he just confused in all the chaos?
Yep.
Yeah. Was there pressure to change his story, or did something else happen? It makes you question, how much weight should we really give to any single piece of testimony?
Yeah.
Especially when the stakes are this high.
Yeah. And it's not just about Dr. Jenkins, right? It's about the fact that we're all human and our memories are fallible. Even the most well-intentioned witness can be influenced by, the stress of the situation, the passage of time, all sorts of things. So you always have to approach these eyewitness accounts with a healthy dose of skepticism, especially when we're talking about something as complex as the JFK assassination.
Yeah. Especially something like this.
Absolutely.
It's it makes you wonder if anything from these accounts, can even be trusted.
Right.
And it's not just the witnesses that raise questions, right? The last investigation really digs into this idea that there might have been more going on, behind the scenes stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Potentially even interference with the investigation itself.
Right. And Fonzie highlights a really interesting quote from Senator Schweiker.
Okay.
Who, as you know, was very deeply involved in investigating the assassination. And Schweiker said that Oswald's life seemed full of what he called fingerprints of intelligence, which really raises the possibility that Oswald might have been connected to intelligence agencies in some way that we just don't fully understand.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a chilling thought, almost too chilling to think about.
It is.
And speaking of things that are chilling, we have to talk about the chain of evidence.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe the broken chain of evidence in this case.
Right.
Jack White's article, Was the Nix Film Altered? This one really goes deep, It focuses on the transfer of Oswald from the Dallas Police Department to the county jail.
Okay.
And it's chaotic. There's conflicting information from all these people who were involved.
Yeah, I mean, that transfer is crucial because it's during that transfer that Jack Ruby, fatally shoots Oswald
Right.
and prevents him from ever standing trial. I mean, that act alone creates this massive hole in the entire investigation.
It's like out of a movie, you know?
Yeah.
You have this key suspect, and then he's gone before he can answer any questions.
It's unbelievable.
Or was the next film Altered
And he was
points out all
wow.
these people, giving completely different accounts about what happened during that transfer.
Like, whoa.
Like Chief Curry claims that he wasn't even aware of the transfer details.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Detective Lavelle. He insists that it was Captain Fritz who gave the, final approval.
So much confusion about who was actually in charge.
Exactly. Yeah. And it makes you wonder, was there a deliberate lapse in security that allowed Ruby to, get close enough?
Right.
Or was it just a horrible series of miscommunications and, oversights? It's hard to say.
It really is.
And White, in the article, he spends a lot of time looking at this one specific detail, Captain Fritz's reaction.
Yeah.
Or I guess you could say lack of reaction when Oswald is shot.
Oh, interesting.
And it's all caught on the CBS footage. Fritz is, rounding a corner just as Ruby lunges forward.
Ah.
And so what does Fritz do? I mean, you'd think that a seasoned homicide detective, would have a much stronger reaction to gunfire, right there in front of him.
Well, that's just it.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, was he genuinely surprised or did he know something was about to happen? It's fueled a lot of those conspiracy theories.
It would, yeah.
And then the fourth decade points out all these other instances where evidence might have been mishandled or even tampered with.
Oh, okay. Like what kind of instances? Like, they mentioned the rifle strap in those backyard photos.
Yeah.
Did it even belong to Oswald?
Yeah.
And then there's that photo of Oswald in front of General Walker's house, and the license plate is completely obliterated.
Mm-hmm.
So, all these inconsistencies and unanswered questions surrounding the evidence, I mean, it makes it really difficult to figure out what really happened.
Right.
And it's almost impossible to separate fact from speculation at this point.
It feels that way sometimes.
We're only talking about the physical evidence, too. What about all those, connections and relationships that we know are swirling around this case?
Right. Good point.
The fourth decade mentions Jack Ruby's trip to New Orleans right before the assassination. And it wasn't just any trip. It was, full of all these weird encounters.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what was so weird about this trip?
Well, he ends up meeting all these people who also have ties to Oswald.
Like who? Who are we talking about?
Like David Ferry and Gordon McClendon. And, even if you think, oh, these are just coincidences, it makes you wonder if there's something more to it. Was Ruby's trip, part of some bigger plan?
Yeah. You have to wonder about that.
And then the article mentions some other figures who might be relevant, too.
Who else?
Dr. Thomas Narote, Charles Clare, Don Campbell. It's
a lot of names.
It's a lot of names. It's like this whole network of individuals who are connected in ways that, we still don't fully understand.
So are these just random encounters or are they, like pieces of a bigger puzzle? I mean, hinting at a conspiracy, that goes way deeper than just a lone gunman.
Yeah.
I mean, these connections could, point to motives or hidden agendas, maybe even a network of conspirators. It's, you got to try and connect the dots, see the bigger picture.
It really does feel like, peeling back layers of an onion here.
Mm-hmm.
And every layer we just find more questions and fewer answers. It just keeps getting more and more complex.
Yeah, for sure.
It's almost overwhelming. You have all these unreliable witnesses and potentially tampered evidence, and you have this whole web of connections. But what about Oswald himself?
Right. What about Oswald?
What would drive someone to do something so shocking?
Yeah, I mean, that's the question, right? That's the question that has haunted, researchers and historians for decades. What was Oswald's motive? Was he acting alone or was he, part of something bigger? And the fourth decade, actually, it explores this one really intriguing theory that Oswald was, get this, part of an assassination team.
An assassination team. That's like straight out of a spy movie.
Right.
It's crazy.
So the theory is that Oswald, with his military background, his time in the Soviet Union, he had the skills and the profile to fit into a larger operation. But it goes even deeper than that. The article suggests that he might have been, manipulated or even brainwashed into playing a role in a much bigger, much more elaborate scheme.
Brainwashed. Wow. Okay, that is a chilling thought. It makes you think about, the dark side of these intelligence agencies and the lengths they might go to, to get what they want.
It's unsettling, for sure. It really makes you wonder, were there these shadowy figures kind of pulling the strings, using Oswald as a pawn in their, in their deadly game? And if so, who were they and
Yeah.
what were their motives?
And if we even entertain the possibility that these powerful forces were involved, I mean, who benefited from Kennedy's death?
Right.
Were there political factions or individuals who, stood to gain from his removal from power?
Well, and that's where the whole idea of a cover-up comes in, right? If there were powerful
Yeah.
forces behind this assassination, they would have a huge interest in making sure the truth never came to light. And that could help explain, the inconsistencies, the unanswered questions, that feeling that something just doesn't add up about the official story.
It's like we're trying to solve this puzzle, but some of the pieces are missing and some of them might deliberately altered.
Right. Exactly.
It's enough to make anyone question the official story.
It really is.
So, okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about unreliable witnesses, potentially mishandled evidence, this whole web of connections, possible motives, cover-ups. I mean, it's a lot to process.
It is, but even though it's a complex and often very frustrating puzzle to try to put together, it's important to keep asking these questions. We owe it to ourselves, to history, to the memory of President Kennedy, to keep searching for the truth, even if it feels elusive.
Yeah. And for you, our listener, what does all this mean? It means you're armed with a much deeper understanding of the complexities surrounding the JFK assassination. You've explored witness accounts, the evidence, possible motives, and you've been challenged to think critically about the official narrative.
And as you continue to explore this event on your own, consider this. What role did the media play in shaping the public perception of the assassination? Did they report the facts objectively, or did they maybe, inadvertently contribute to the confusion and the rise of all these conspiracy theories? It's something to think about as you do your own deep dive into this pivotal moment in history.
Yeah. It's a question worth asking. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the JFK assassination. But remember, the conversation doesn't end here. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep searching for the truth. We'll see you next time.